The river had died years ago, leaving behind only a scar in the land, a long, twisting trench of cracked mud that split the valley like a wound that never healed. The cowboy rode slowly along its edge, his horse's hooves clopping dully against the baked earth. Dust clung to his boots and coat, and his throat burned from hours without water. His name was Elias Calder, and poverty followed him like a shadow that refused to lift. He owned little more than the horse beneath him, a worn rifle, and the thin hope that somewhere ahead, the land might offer mercy. The sun hung low and cruel, turning the world the color of rust. Heat wavered in the air like a living thing. Elias wiped sweat from his brow and pulled his hat lower, scanning the riverbed for signs of movement. Travelers sometimes crossed through here, desperate men, lost women, broken families, but the river itself had become a place people avoided. Too many stories whispered of those who entered and were never seen again. That was when he noticed something wrong. At first, he thought they were stones, three pale shapes half sunken into the mud, lined strangely close together near a bend in the dry channel. But as his horse slowed, ears twitching nervously, Elias felt the hairs rise on his neck. Stones did not lie like that. Stones did not carry the faint shape of shoulders, or hair tangled with dirt. He dismounted and took a few careful steps forward, rifle in hand, heart thudding loud enough to drown out the wind. They were women. 3 of them lay in the mud, unmoving, abandoned like refuse under the open sky. Their dark hair was stiff with dried clay, their skin gray with dust, lips cracked from thirst. Elias froze. His breath caught in his chest with a strange sound he did not recognize, something between horror and prayer. He approached the nearest one, kneeling beside her with shaking hands. She was young, too young to have suffered this. Her cheek rested against the hard ground, lashes tipped with dust. He reached out and hovered, afraid to touch. Afraid of what it would mean if he did. "Miss," he whispered. No answer. He placed 2 fingers gently against her throat. Nothing. His stomach tightened with dread as he moved to the second, older, face marked by delicate lines that spoke of years under open skies. Her chest did not rise. The third lay farther off, almost swallowed by the mud where the ground dipped lower. Elias stood slowly, numbness creeping through his limbs. He told himself it was already too late. That this land had claimed them the way it had claimed so many others. Then he saw it. A hand, barely visible beneath a thin skin of mud, one hand twitched weakly, fingers trembling like dying leaves in the wind. Elias lunged forward. He dropped his rifle and knelt beside her, brushing mud away from her face. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow, so faint he barely felt it when he pressed his ear to her chest. "Easy," he whispered, as though she could hear him. "You're alive. Stay with me." His voice cracked. He looked from her to the others, still and silent, and felt guilt crash into him like a wave. Why her? Why only one? But questions would not save her now. Water. He reached for his canteen, heart sinking as he felt how light it was. Only a few swallows remained. He cursed under his breath but did not hesitate. Tilting her head gently, he pressed the mouth of the canteen to her lips and let a single drop fall. She did not swallow at first. Then her lips twitched. Another drop. A faint groan escaped her throat. Elias exhaled shakily. "That's it. Come back." He did not know her name, her people, her story, but he would not let her die here. Not in this place, not like this. Slowly, with care, he brushed more mud away from her mouth and eyes. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing dark eyes dulled by pain but still alive. She tried to speak. Nothing came. "Don't," he said softly. "Save your strength. I've got you." He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped her trembling hand, wiping it clean of grime. Her skin was cold, too cold for a living thing under such a punishing sun. The 2 others lay close enough that he could not look at one without seeing the other. He closed their eyes gently, whispering words he had not spoken since he was a boy kneeling beside his mother's bed. "I'm sorry I came too late," he said to them. Then he lifted the living woman into his arms. She was lighter than she should have been. Her head rolled weakly against his chest, and he felt her breath against his collarbone like the faintest brush of life itself. He carried her to his horse, speaking the whole time, as though silence might claim her if he stopped. "It's all right. You're not alone now. I won't leave you. I swear." He settled her carefully in the saddle, tying her in place with his coat so she would not fall. The horse snorted softly, uneasy but obedient. Elias mounted behind her and turned away from the river. As he rode, he looked back once. The empty riverbed swallowed the other 2 in its silence. Something twisted inside his chest that would never unbreak. The sun began to fall as the land stretched endlessly before them, darkening the horizon with shadows that looked like fingers reaching up from the earth. Elias rode harder, faster. He did not know if there was a doctor within a day's ride. He did not know if she would last the night. All he knew was this. He had found her when the world had given up on her. And he would not. By nightfall the wind had changed, crawling down from the hills and cutting through Elias's threadbare coat like a blade. The heat of day vanished as if it had never existed, replaced by a cold that seeped into the bones. He rode through shadowed land, eyes fixed ahead, one hand gripping the reins, the other resting protectively against the motionless woman in front of him. Her breathing had grown weaker. He could feel it against his chest, fluttering like a candle about to go out. No, 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 he muttered, kicking the horse gently into a faster pace. Stay with me, just stay. At last, thin light appeared in the distance, a lonely cabin perched crookedly at the edge of the plains like an old man refusing to lie down. Smoke rose faintly from its chimney. Elias had never been so glad to see anything in his life. He slid from the saddle and lifted the woman down, carrying her to the door. He did not knock. He kicked. Help, he shouted. For the love of God, help. The door flew open to reveal a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes and a face scratched by years of wind and worry. One look at Elias's arms, at the barely breathing figure he held, and she stepped aside without a word. Lay her there, she said, already moving. The inside of the cabin was warm, smelling of herbs and wood smoke. Elias placed the woman gently on a narrow bed while the old woman lit a lamp and pulled blankets from a chest. She's near death, the woman said flatly, feeling the girl's pulse. Dehydration, fever, exposure. Can you save her? Elias asked. The woman met his eyes. I can try. Elias sank into a chair, hands still shaking. The next hours blurred into a hush of murmured instructions and soft movements. Boiled water, crushed leaves, cool cloths pressed to hot skin. Elias did whatever was asked of him, his own exhaustion forgotten. At one point he reached to hold the woman's hand and was startled when her fingers curled weakly around his. His breath caught. She could not speak, could barely move, but she held on as if he were the only thing anchoring her to the world. Don't let go, he whispered. I'm right here. The fever worsened before it broke. She trembled violently one moment and burned the next. The old woman wiped her brow again and again, murmuring soft prayers in a language Elias did not recognize. Finally, in the deepest part of night, the woman began to breathe slower. Steadier. When Elias leaned close, he felt warmth, not the burning heat of fever, but real warmth. Life warmth. She'll live, the old woman said quietly. Something inside Elias gave way. He bowed his head and covered his face, tears dripping between his fingers. Thank you, he said hoarsely. The old woman touched his shoulder. The dead cannot be undone. But the living, sometimes they can be saved. She left him alone with the girl. Elias sat through the night listening to her breathe. When dawn came, faint and pale through the window, her eyes opened. They were dark and alert now, still fragile, but alive. She looked at him as if he were a question. Elias cleared his throat. You're safe, he said softly. You were left in the riverbed. I found you. Her lips parted. My sisters, she whispered. The word cut him open. He swallowed. I'm sorry, he said. They didn't make it. Her face crumpled, grief folding into her features so fast it stole his breath. A sound escaped her throat, not loud, not wild, but full of something ancient and broken. He let her cry. When the storm of it finally passed, she lay still, staring at the ceiling. Why did you save me? She asked. Elias hesitated. Because you were alive. She turned her head and studied him. Many men would have turned away. Then they weren't men, he said. A weak smile touched her lips. My name is Lila, she said. He nodded. Elias. Silence stretched between them, no longer heavy but gentle, like a blanket. They took our water, Lila said quietly. Left us with nothing. We walked until our legs gave out. I thought the earth would swallow us whole. You didn't deserve that, Elias said. No, she agreed. But it happened anyway. The old woman returned later with broth and a warning look. Lila ate slowly, carefully. Over the next days, Lila grew stronger. Elias remained. He slept on the floor. Chopped wood. Fetched water. Mended a broken fence behind the cabin that wasn't even his to fix. On the 4th morning, Lila stood on her own. By the 7th, she walked. And on the 10th, she stepped outside and faced the open sky. Elias watched her from the doorway as sunlight brushed her hair, turning it copper and gold. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, as if tasting life. I thought I'd never see this again, she said. You will, he said. As long as you like. The old woman spoke later, over tea. You gave her a second life. Elias shook his head. No, I just refused to let the first one end. When it was time to go, Lila stood beside Elias's horse. Where will you go? She asked. Wherever the land lets me, he said. She considered him, then the plains. Then maybe, she said slowly, it can let us go together. Elias felt something inside him wake up. Not desire, not need, something better, hope. He helped her onto the saddle, then climbed up behind her. As they rode away from the cabin, sunlight burned the horizon brighter. The river was behind them. The land was still hard. The world still cruel, but she was alive, and so, in a strange way, was he.